welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, I am J Cool. I post interesting videos such as daily news, entertainment, filming, so you need to subscribe.
It's lovely. Good evening, Zambia. Good evening, Africa, and welcome to State of the Nation right here on KBN TV from Zambia's capital city, Lusaka. With me, Innocent Piri, can simply call me IP. Tonight we discuss the future of Zambia's democracy, and of course my guest on the program is a former political advisor, a political scientist, researcher, and an author. His name is Dr. Zumani Zimba. He joins me on KBN TV as we begin the conversation. Doc, good evening and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Comrade Innocent Piri. It's my pleasure to be on this platform for the first time, and happy 2024. Thank
you so much. Happy 2024 to you as well. And welcome to KBN TV.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. I'm really humbled to be here.
Thank you so much. I should also make mention that I'm hosting you for the first time after your prolonged detention. You spent over 5 months into prison. Yeah. Let's begin from there. I know that you were given harsh charges at the time you were arrested. Are you a terrorist?
Yeah, no. Yeah. It's quite unfortunate that party politics, political malice, and political bitterness and vengeance could reach the height it reached on me. As I've said it on other platforms elsewhere, I was not the primary target of the arrest. I was primarily the bridge, the ladder, politically, through which the main target was to be arrested or be brought to book. So if the charges on me had succeeded, the schemers of the malicious charges that were heaped on me would have succeeded to get to President Lungu because he was the main target. So I was just a proxy, a conduit, a tangent, a bridge and a ladder through which they wanted to get to President Lungu. So we are thankful to God that God said no, heaven said no, and by God's grace, after many months of being in prison, the courts of law, the competent courts of law, were objective enough, professional enough to acquit me because there was zero evidence against me for the charges I was given. The charges were malicious, the charges were so evil and vengeful in nature. Primarily against ECL, who is my former boss and who was the main target, but also secondly against me because to some extent I'm also a political irritation to some people. So I was pretty much aware in terms of what was happening. We prayed about it. The Zambian people prayed about it. I would like to thank the opposition. They spoke, raised the voice against injustice. The church, the Catholic Church in particular, and many other clergy voices, we could follow them through the newspapers and the media. They were speaking against my prolonged detention without being taken to court. Different media houses, they wrote editorials, they spoke, NGOs. So we are thankful to the Zambian people and many citizens who participated in standing for justice and speaking for justice, especially between the time I was arrested and before I was taken to court. Because as you may be aware, I overstayed in the police cells. I was punished in the police cells before I was taken to court because the police officers couldn't also charge me. By the way, I'm one of the few persons, I don't know if I'm the first one, who went to court without appearing before a police officer to charge me to explain to me as to why I was arrested. My co-accused, they were interrogated, warn and caution statements were obtained from them or extracted. But when I was taken to the police, I was just bundled in a police cell, and I stayed there for more than a month before I was taken to court. But also in the process, as you may be aware, after 2 weeks, I was taken to the prison without going through the court process. So I was the first maybe Zambian to go through a prison system, to stay in a prison at Chimbokaila for 4 days without going through a court, without getting a court warrant from any judge or any magistrate. And after 4 days, the prison system or service, they refused. They said, look, we don't keep people in prison without a court warrant. It's against us and we can be sued. Can you take this gentleman out of the prison? Maybe you can leave other people who have been here through the court, but this gentleman and this co-accused, they have not gone through a court system. Take them out of this place because we don't want to be sued. So I was taken from the prison back to another police station for another 2 to 3 weeks. And then later on, consequently, I was taken to court. Something happened which a lot of media practitioners, including maybe yourselves, you didn't pick. When I was arrested at Woodlands Police, I was charged for possession. Possession of being found with terrorist articles. Meaning that on my body, in my car or in my house, there was some form of articles I was found with in possession. It's like holding something. After 30 days, when I went to the court, I was presented before the court with a revised charge for aiding terrorism. So a lot of media practitioners in Zambia didn't understand that the charges I was arrested for, and that made headlines for 30 days, for a month plus, changed when I appeared before the court. I went before the court as the person was either sponsoring or aiding terrorism. And I was acquitted on those charges. Yet, when I was arrested, and for all those weeks, the Zambia police and all the Zambian public media houses, they were running with the story that I was found in possession with the terrorist articles. Yet, when I was picked at my place, I was just picked to go to the police for interviews. They never searched me, and they never found me with anything. As I said, it was political malice, political vengeance, political vindictiveness at its best. We thank God that the competent and the impartial High Court that handled our case acquitted us because there was no basis, there was zero evidence, and there was no need to keep us in prison because there was no connection whatsoever, especially for me and my co-accused, to the charges they rebelled against us.
You call it political vindictiveness, political vengeance, all these terminologies that you are really bringing across this evening. But I also want to bring, another angle, that you were not arrested alone or detained alone. There were some other 2 young men who also came along with you. And the question that many Zambians would be asking is that why did the police only picked on you as Dr. Zumani Zimba? Sometimes in our traditional setup, people say there is no smoke without fire, and I kept on asking myself, at what point did you become a terrorist? Because the last time I interviewed you personally, when you were in the NGO sector, you were an activist.
Yes, very.
Later on, you became a political advisor to Dr. Chimbakambwili under the NDC.
Yes.
I also interviewed you several times, again, even when, of course, when you went to State House as a political advisor. Even after the PF lost power, after ECL lost power, I interviewed you several times. So I'm wondering, and I was wondering, at what point did you become a terrorist, away from you being an author and a political scientist?
Yeah, thank you. Suffice to mention that we had a mountain of police officers as well as in some form of intelligence officers as false state witnesses against us.
Right.
The total number, I think, was 15 witnesses, state witnesses that came through before the High Court case for against us. Out of all these 15, there is nobody who mentioned me in the case,
Right.
apart from the arresting officer. And when the arresting officer was asked the question you have just asked, why did you arrest Dr. Zumani Zimba and charge him what you charged him for? Is he a terrorist? She said, no, he's not a terrorist. Did he sponsor terrorism or aid terrorism? He said, no. Was there terrorism committed by his co-accused? She said no. Are his co-accused terrorists? Said no. Were there people who were gassed in Petauke by his co-accused? She said no. Why did you arrest him? That question kept on arising from our lawyers. She said no, there was a printout. She presented an Airtel printout. 7 days before his co-accused were arrested in Petauke, he talked to them. That was only connection, a phone call between me and one of the co-accused. And she was asked, from the Airtel printouts between Dr. Zimba and the number for his co-accused, how many other people did that co-accused talk to during that week? Count them. She couldn't count them because they were in hundreds or thousands. On the day his co-accused was arrested in Petauke, did Dr. Zimba talk to him? He said no. Why did you pick on him apart from other many people the co-accused talked to him during that period? She said no, he was of political interest to us. That's all. So there was no basis even to connect me to my co-accused. Look, Levin Goma is a political advisor to President HH. By virtue of his position, he talks to political operatives, political members of the UPND, both at national level, provincial, district, constituency, ward level, name it. By virtue of his job, his phone keeps on ringing every day and night from different political members of the UPND across the country. That was the nature of my phone when I was at State House. I was talking to PF members countrywide on a daily basis. I was talking to chiefs, to NGO leaders. I was talking to ministers, permanent secretaries, directors. Name it. That was the job of a political advisor who could talk to different political stakeholders anyway. If any of the persons I talked to when I was at State House committed murder in Nakonde, surely, should I be arrested as a co-accused just because my phone number and that person at some point, there's a linkage? That was the basis of my arrest, by the way. A phone call connection. 7 days before the persons, they were even arrested in Petauke. That was the only time I talked to them. So to answer your question... It's
not a conversation that you had with one of your co-accused, maybe around 2019, 2020, maybe when the killing, or should I say...
No, listen, I was appointed on 20th December at State House to be a political advisor to President ECL, isn't it?
Yeah.
20th December 2019. So the issues of gassing, the issues of arsony, markets being burnt, these were things which were happening when I was outside the government. I was a critic of those activities on my social media, on Facebook, name it. The people that were arrested in Petauke in February. I was only settled in State House in January. So at what point did I even scheme such operations when I was literally new in State House? So even the coincidence of the charge doesn't make sense to me.
What was the conversation you had with one of your co-accused? What was that phone call all about? What did you discuss in that phone call?
We didn't talk once, we talked many times. Now, something interesting that I will mention. My first conversation, the main conversation with my co-accused, by the way, I will say it here because you have asked me, you are the first person to ask, in fact, had nothing to do with PF. It had everything to do with a sister to President HH, who was working at Ministry of Education. The text message is there on my phone, I still keep it. The gentleman introduced himself and he told me that, okay, according to some party members, officials, there is this lady related to the opposition leader working at the Ministry of Education who is sabotaging government. So I want to report her to you. It's a text message. And I said, please, can you bring me evidence of that accusation, and I'll follow up with the PS and the minister, because it's not my job, but I'll follow up with the minister and the PS. And that was the first engagement. In which month? January. That was the first time I talked to the person they were trying to connect me to. And when the person came to State House, he was specifically coming to bring a file or information. After our conversation at State House, I even cleared him to say, no, my brother, there is no evidence, there is no basis. We can't use malice to target an innocent civil servant because she's associated with an opposition leader. And therefore, he said, no, in fact, apart from this, then we went to another conversation, which was purely to do with the PF. He comes from Petauke, and he was going to Petauke. And there was some councillors wanted to defect. That was purely the conversation. It ended there. There was nothing more and nothing less apart from these two conversations.
Your story sounded so juicy, Dr. Zimba. You know, when you were arrested, we could hear, of course, on social media, others were even saying, we thank God that finally the people who were gassing us, the people that killed us are being followed one by one. And when your name came out as, the man was in State House, it was more like, here the devil comes now. Tell me something. Did you have any connection to the gassing incident that took place?
You know me very well. I'm not a person who can even scheme of killing a person. Not even killing my own dog or a cat. I'm not cruel. I'm a born-again Christian since 1998. When I worked at State House, I was one of the best civil servants you can ever think of in terms of professionalism. And by the way, why should the ruling party be scheming of gassing people? So to me, I was also wondering, why should the ruling party? You're in government and then you start gassing people. And why should the person who is just 2 weeks old in State House be the one at the center of such a scheme? So you see, that's the reason why I was acquitted before the High Court. Because there was no connection, there was no basis. These are things at some point which existed before I went to State House. There were markets being burnt in Lusaka and on the Copper Belt. I was not in State House. So how do you bring such things connecting to such heavy charges to a person just because you hate a person and you want to connect him to the former president because you want to remove his immunity and banish him in case he wants to contest 2026 elections? That's the reason why I said I was the only closest link to President Lungu. The schemers of that charge identified to link Lungu to that charge. Had they succeeded to convict me, they would have said, look, this person was working for ECL, and therefore ECL was aware and ECL blessed him. The whole operation, therefore ECL's immunity must be removed so that he's also tried.
Chemicals were actually, named, which were said to have been used in gassing the citizens of this Republic of Zambia. And of course, your name came out so prominent.
My brother, don't even waste time. Let me tell you something.
I want to ask you, as a profession man, with the whole education that you have acquired, what do you know about gassing?
That's why I say that I've got zero connection, zero knowledge. Now, let me tell you something interesting before what I learned at the court, because I was also learning a lot of things during the court sessions. Deep 600, one of the chemicals that was so prominent in the charges, I came to learn when I was appearing before the court that in fact it is just a scientific name for mineral water. So the people arrested in Petauke for being in possession with the chemicals of terrorism and gassing with the deep 600 were being accused of carrying terrorist chemicals using mineral water. The police officers who arrested them and charged them for for possessing deep 600 as terrorist articles didn't know that deep 600 was mineral water. Mans. And what our lawyers did, when they came, specifically for the second court session, they brought bottles of mineral water named Deep 600, and they gave everyone, including the police officers. That's how embarrassing it was. So you see, political vindictiveness, political bitterness and malice doesn't pay. It only embarrasses the state. I was so depressed, so ashamed with the state prosecutors. Because you could see people who are defeated, but only coming to court to defend the state because they have been sent. I could see police officers coming to appear before the court as state witnesses, but they don't believe it and they don't even mean it. When they ask the question, they even confess, we don't know why we are here. So I don't want us even to spend a lot of time on this, unless you want to.
This topic,
yes, but I want to assure you that for the journalists that came before the court, they followed everything. Zero connection, zero evidence against me. That's the reason
as we bury this topic, I mean, you've been acquitted. It's been, I think, quite 2 months now from the time you were acquitted. What next for Dr. Zimba? I bring this question, reason being that we have seen a number of people who were accused or detained in such a manner, who have already sued the state as we speak right now. What next for Dr. Zimba?
So what is happening is very simple. Our primary objective was to get back the freedom. That's the reason why, by God's grace, we are here today. We are free citizens, we are free people. The court acquitted us. For me, that was the primary objective. Being in prison in that malicious manner is so traumatizing, both for yourself, the family, the friends, and everyone. So the fact that God gave us liberty and freedom once more, to me, that was the greatest achievement. We celebrate heaven that the kingdom of darkness was not only exposed but also defeated. There's so much talked about compensations. I see them to have a political face, a political party face.
First of all, in your case, you don't intend to sue the state?
The lawyers will handle that, and the lawyers will guide and advise.
Right.
It is not a position that I would want to stress or even insist on or think about or worry. Right. Maybe my co-accused. But me as an individual, it doesn't even excite me.
Right.
My brother, money is not the issue. It's freedom which is the main issue here, and life. So I celebrate life and I celebrate freedom, and I thank God for that. Whether there will be compensation or no compensation, it doesn't even affect me and it won't even change the story. Now, the issue is this. The so-called compensations are, from what has happened so far, they carry a political party face. The compensations are literally a scheme by the UPND to compensate their party cadres, to pay back their party cadres. The people that have been paid so far are just UPND, associated members or associated citizens. Look, in 2021 on August, 12 August, the day of elections, there was a murder, an assassination of a provincial chairperson for the PF in Northwestern Province by the name of Jackson Kungo. President HH has never acknowledged that death. He talks about a lot of people are killed due to politics. He doesn't name Jackson Kungo. The sons and daughters of Jackson Kungo, who I met because I went to bury him with President Lungu, anyway, are still mourning their father. Murdered daylight by the UPND cadres at a polling station. Now, if there is political morality and credibility and professionalism to these compensations, why has Jackson Kungo's family, why has Jackson Kungo's children not been paid or compensated? Given that there is even video evidence that he was murdered and brutally massacred by UPND cadres or members. Why is it that Cornelius Mwetwa, being the government spokesperson and UPND spokesperson, when they are listing the people who are killed due to politics, they never mention Jackson Kungo? He was not a political dwarf. He was a provincial chairperson for the Patriotic Front, for God's sake. He was so visible. His murder is known both countrywide and in the region. President HH has never talked about Jackson Kungo. He has never even apologized to the family of Jackson Kungo, to his orphans, to his mother and children, to his wife, to his sisters and brothers. The UPND, they have never apologized, and they don't talk about compensation around Jackson Kungo. I'm just giving you a very clear example of Jackson Kungo. Before you talk about us who are alive, anyway, we're talking about somebody we lost. So these compensations, check the names of people who are being compensated. Just check the names. Predominantly Southerners, number one. Predominantly people from the strongholds of the UPND. Northwestern, Western and Southern Province. Predominantly people from the UPND party itself. So they are paying themselves using taxpayers' money. So far, that's what is happening. I've never seen so far a credible compensation. What I've seen just partisan compensation. It will only become credible and professional when they begin to compensate people outside the UPND. And Jackson Kungo's family and children, to me, must be the first ones to be prioritized. Just like we talk about in Samansama, just we talk about it, Gabriel Banda and these others. Compensation must not have a party face. Compensation must not have a regional face. Compensation must not have an ethnic face. It must have a face of Zambians and it must have a face of citizens on an equal basis.
I want you to just spend a minute around this topic because I have with me the latest story which has just come in as of today, where of course we've been told that some few members of the ruling party have decided to sue the state. Now I'll read just in parts. Where 5 members of the United Party for National Development, UPND, have sued the state seeking, among other reliefs, damages for forced imprisonment. The 5 Samuel Mundia, the 5 Elas Mubanga, who is the Minister of Small, Media and Enterprises, Patrick Mcheleka, who is Permanent Secretary, Special Duties, UPND National Youth Secretary, Mr. Samuel Ngwira. So mark that Samuel Ngwira is from Chipata, and also Mr. Mcheleka is a Bemba. You just mentioned that much of these names are coming from Southern and also Northwestern Province, so that we correct the notion around. Then also we've got Chinyimba Walia, this must be a Bemba, I want to believe, and Kelvin Kalusha Walia. These are the names. Now, according to the statement of a claim filed before the Lusaka High Court, the 5 say they were apprehended and arrested without reasonable cause by the Zambia Police Service for 31 days from September 13th, 2020 to October 3rd, 2020 at Kasama Police Station on charges of aggravated robbery and malicious damage to property. They have however, they say during the trial, the state released them through a nolle prosequi. That's another important word that we need to mark mention there. Nolle prosequi for lack of evidence. Arising from that, the complainants want to be compensated by the state for damages that includes mental distress, mental anguish, emotional distress and inconveniences, as well as embarrassment to the general public.
Yeah, so it's very simple. It vindicates what I just said. The compensation is around 3 criteria.
Yep.
Number 1 criteria, you must be a member of the ruling party, the UPND. They are all members of the UPND, from what I've just heard. Some are even permanent secretaries. Some are even cabinet ministers. They're not even ashamed. These are people on salaries and allowances, huge allowances, on a monthly basis. But they are still trying to get money from the national treasury. Why? Not because they are Zambians. Not because they deserve it, but because they are UPND. So being UPND is the number 1 criteria for this compensation. So far, there is evidence, even from the list you have just...
They were also, however, they were tortured.
No, they are not the only ones who have been tortured. They are not the only ones who have been released on nolle prosequi. Madam Umbipidi, was she not released on nolle prosequi? Has she been compensated? The answer is no. We are talking about people who are just in police cells for 30 days. How many months, if not years, was Madam Umbipidi in prison and was released on nolle prosequi? Has she been compensated? They will not compensate her, maybe, for now, because she's PF. So the list we are talking about, including the list, other lists have been compensated, is people associated, number 1, with the UPND, as UPND members. It's some form of political appeasement and political payback using taxpayers' money.
As a former government official, yeah, go ahead.
Number two, as I said, it has got a regional face.
As a former government official, as of course a lecturer, an author, a researcher, political scientist, all these titles on you, what does the law say when it comes to compensations? Can one be compensated if you are released on a nolle prosequi?
They've said the nolle prosequi is just a French term. In English, it simply means no prosecution. The state has ceased prosecution, meaning they will no longer prosecute you before a court. And the state, in most cases and always, do not give reasons. So you may be, the state may enter a nolle on the fact that they do not have evidence. The state may enter a nolle for security reasons. Maybe if they proceed with the case, the information that may be divulged before the court may implicate the state or jeopardize some issues with the state. So the state will stop the case from proceeding. So there are different reasons as to why the state may enter nolle prosequi or cease prosecution. But in most cases, that does not mean the case has ended. The state can come back and restart the case at any given point in time.
So this
so
means
a nolle
that
prosequi is not an acquittal. For example, what I got with my co-accused was an acquittal. So it was not a decision of the state that they have suspended my case. They have stopped the case from running before the court, and then they release you. No. It is a situation whereby you go through a court process, the trial starts and ends, and the judge comes up with a judgment to either convict you because they have been found with the case or acquit you because you are innocent. So some of us, by God's grace, we are acquitted, meaning we are innocent because the court, after a trial, discovered there was no evidence or basis to convict us. So we are free people. So nolle prosequi are not an acquittal. These people are not free people. These people, we don't know whether they are still innocent or they are guilty. Because their trial was only suspended or stopped by the state for whatever reason, which was not divulged. So in a normal process, you cannot compensate somebody who has been released on a nolle prosequi because he or she is not acquitted. The state has just decided to suspend trial.
Generally, from what you've said, Doc, what does it mean when it comes to the implementation of the rule of law in Zambia at this point now?
So when you see a lot of people being compensated on nolle prosequi, it means that there is an assault on the rule of law. How do you compensate somebody who has been released by the discretion of the state only to suspend trial? What about after 5 years, after 10 years, that case is taken back to the court and the person is convicted, yet you paid the person 3 million or 6 million. So that is not only an assault on democracy and the rule of law, it is a mockery to the justice system. As far as I'm concerned, you can't be compensating people on nolle because they have not been acquitted. The state has just suspended their prosecution.
Are you trying to tell me and the people of Zambia that from what you've submitted this evening, is the New Dawn government, is the UPND government abusing the law, not following the law?
They are not just abusing the law. They are abrogating the law. They are insulting the law. The law must be faceless. The law must be applied equally and fairly. If somebody has been arrested for murder, and after a few months the state enters a nolle prosequi, meaning they have suspended trial and prosecution, then they released for whatever reasons. If you pay that person for the period he or she stayed in prison or in the police cells, 6 million, 4 million, Then later on, after 10 years, other people say, no, but why was that person released or not? Let's get back the case. Then the person is convicted. How do you justify the 4 or the 6 million you would have paid? So the point is, paying people, regardless of their political affiliation, on these non prosecutors is an anomaly. It shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be like that.
As a former State House political advisor, really, and one of among the main other reasons that led the PF lose power at a time when you were at the helm of presiding those elections in 2021 was that the rule of law, was on its knees. There was no rule of law talk about at the time under the PF administration. Hence the UPND, they campaigned based on that premise that they wanted to restore the rule of law. And even now, the UPND, always keeps on emphasizing that we are back into the Champions League now. There was no law to talk about. We have the law now. How true is that from where you stand?
Okay, so it depends with where your perspective and where you're standing from. In 2021, PF cadres could be arrested and even imprisoned. Innocent Karimanchi is one of the good examples. Innocent Karimanchi went to prison under which government? Under the PF. So when people want to exaggerate that there was no rule of law, it's baseless. It's just baseless, because I used to follow these cases. We're talking about the law versus party cadres in this case. We can't say there was no rule of law, yet we had the police service operating normally, and people could be arrested, taken to court, and taken to prisons. The prison service was operating normally with the prisoners. So if there was some form of a failed state under PF, why is it that we even had free and fair elections, which President HH won? So you see, people tend to exaggerate lies, political lies. If there was no rule of law, President HH wouldn't have been president today. If there was no rule of law, elections could have been conducted in a manner they were conducted, to the point that the sitting president even considered defeat. Because there was no law. So why was he afraid to even consider defeat if there was no law? There was a law. Number one, the Republican Constitution, which was standing and being defended by a sitting president. Government institutions across the country, police, the Zambia Army, the Zambia Prison Service, name it, the public service across the country, they operated at their full scale in a normal way. That's the reason why President Lungu considered defeat. That's the reason why President Lungu went to hand over power willingly and peacefully to President HH at Hero Stadium. I was with him, I escorted him. I was the only special assistant who accompanied him anyway. So, it's a fallacy. It is exaggerated political falsehood to say there was no rule of law in 2021 before UPND took over. That's baseless. If there was no rule of law, as I said, President HH wouldn't have even contested. Look at 2022, how this government banished President Honorable Malanja and Bowman Lusamba using state institutions. So you see, if that was the case in 2021, the PF would have banished HH on the ballot, meaning he wouldn't have contested. But he was allowed to contest freely and even won. And the power was even handed over to him as the president. And today, he is the president, so he can't be exaggerating lies.
How is our our democratic image as a country from the time the New Dawn government took over up to at this point where we are right now?
Yeah, so that's where we need to be very specific. During I will use the comparative approach. Between 2020 and 2021, that's when I was at State House, so I'll focus there. And I'll compare it to 2021 to date. So, 2020 to 2021, the opposition political parties were free to have and to conduct political rallies and press conferences everywhere, every day, every week, every month. President HH himself that was always talking on social media, at community houses, conducting press briefings, and different political players, NGOs, they are everywhere across the country conducting, enjoying their freedom of association and freedom of assembly under the PF and under President Lungu. That's agreed. From 2021 August to date, January 2024, under President HH and the UPND, freedom of association and freedom of assembly is a wishful thinking for the opposition political parties, the NGOs and Zambians. You can only dream it in your dream when you are sleeping. You can't actualize it physically during the day. The police will show up before you even talk. The police, in fact, will show up before you even leave your house. If you are driving, the police will show up before you come out of your car. So, democracy as we speak is under assault. Democracy right now is under attack. Freedom of assembly and freedom of association is just a hoax. In fact, the police IG recently made it very clear. You can't be allowed to conduct those press briefings or even in political rallies.
He actually disputed that he was misquoted.
Whether it was misquoted or not, it is not happening. It is only President HH who is conducting press briefings. So we can't talk about what is not there. Well, let's talk about what is there. So under the PF, that's why I tend to worry at the political lies the president tend to peddle. Even during official press briefings, he wants to exaggerate like he's a Democrat. He's an authoritarian. That's a fact. He was elected in a democratic manner, but he's governing Zambia using authoritarian tendencies and authoritarian models. He does not want Fred Membe to talk, to even have a press rally. The Socialist Party in December wanted to conduct a rally, is it in Mandevu? My friend, they didn't see the light of the day for that press, for that rally. It was stopped by the police and they were warned. So right now, Zambians are fearing that should I have a rally or should I have a press briefing at some lodge? You know, Kasonde, is it Kasonde Mwenda in Chipata? I was in Chipata recently. My brother, he was, yeah, I think he regretted. No. If you see some video footage, it's quite unfortunate. We have got, now the police have become so militant that they will treat you as if coming to my church, like you're a terrorist. For holding just a press briefing. Kasonde Mwenda had to survive and cry for his life. In Chipata. It happened, I think, a month ago. He was on the Copper Belt. The same Kasonde Mwenda was on the Copper Belt. He was brutalized and harassed by the police. Now, you can't talk about democracy in any society where citizens are not free to assemble freely and to associate.
There are a number of issues which, of course, have been raised by different stakeholders. We can talk about the Catholic bishops, for example. You can talk about EFZ. We talk about LAS itself.
Yes,
a number of stakeholders have expressed concern and they have strongly alleged, including OSIDA, who are saying our democracy is, slowly dying.
It has shrunk,
But of course, from the government side, the government position, they are saying those people or you, the individuals who are, insinuating that democracy in Zambia is slowly dying, you are really, either you are bitter or you are politicking, And in that regards, again, OSIDA brought out some issues. I think if you read the number of statements that have come from these stakeholders, have brought in the issue of the PF, the intra-party wrangles going on under the Patriotic Front. When you looked at all this story about the PF, what do you digest as a political scientist?
In the PF, I think there are no wrangles. In the PF, there are no wrangles that are internally driven.
If one can bring to your attention what is going on.
No,
because I know that you were in prison, so you may not be aware to some of the things.
Yes.
So I can bring to your attention.
Yes, proceed. I will answer.
Exactly.
I'll start from where I've stopped.
Thank you so much. We have Honorable Sampa right now, who is said to be a president of the Patriotic Front. You know, he had what he described, what he termed as a convention, which was held on the 24th of October last year. According to him, it is the convention that ushered him to now take over the PF as a party president. That also triggered the comeback of Isse, who said, we can't allow this political party to be taken by some intruders.
Okay, so what's happening here is this. I'll come back to the same point. Within the PF, there are no wrangles or divisions which are self-driven amongst themselves.
Right.
The wrangles you see are artificially made by the UPND. That's the reason why Mao Sampa is the only opposition leader whose convention was secured by the state and protected by the state police. So that tells you a story. That tells you a story. It's like saying that your neighbor is not doing anything to your wife, your rich neighbor is not doing anything to your wife, yet some of the clothes of your wife are found in your neighbor's bedroom. Or some of the clothes for the neighbor are found in your pantry, in where your wife's clothes are. And then at some point, your neighbor and your wife are seen in some hotels interacting and getting pictures, or at some beach. And then your neighbor says, no, I've got nothing to do with your marriage. If I tell your marriage you fail, it has everything to do with you and your wife. So that is what is happening between the UPND and the PF. Mao Sampa and the whole team, his peers, they are a project of the UPND, sponsored by the UPND, being pimped politically by the UPND. That's the reason why there is a collaboration between what's happening on the side of Mao Sampa's faction and Parliament. These are the issues before the court now, where Parliament can even ignore court position and standing of the case and still treat Mao Sampa and accept all his peers as legitimate PF leaders. The scheme is to divide and break the UPND, sorry, the PF, expel some members of Parliament of the PF. Some of them, they were even attempt to expel them. As you may be aware, the list came out from the Mao Sampa's team, cause a lot of by-elections and possibly try to win those by-elections to increase the number of MPs in Parliament. So to come back to your answer, to your question, there are no divisions in the PF, frankly speaking, based on the PF members themselves. The confusion, the chaos you see in the PF is heavily sponsored by the UPND. There is video evidence that Cornelius Mweta was confirming that I will ensure that there is confusion in the PF and it is divided. There's video evidence I watched.
He actually disowned that video.
No, but it's himself. He has to go. He needs to disown himself. Why is he disowning the video? He has to disown his mouth. He's talking and people are following and getting videos. So when you speak, don't denounce what you have spoken. Denounce yourself first. So forget about that position. He is now ashamed because there is evidence that everything around the PF is coming from the ruling party, and the government spokesperson, who is the party spokesperson for the UPND, he's on record to have confirmed it. That's the reason why I said, let's wait what happened before the courts. Between Mao Sampa and the ECL-led PF group, as far as I'm concerned, the ECL-led group is the PF. The Mao Sampa-led PF is a political operation and scheme of the UPND. And at some point, I can assure you, from the way I see things, it will fail, and it will fail terribly and regrettably.
Let's tackle two issues before we bring in the callers. Of course, one of the things that I would want us to look at, of course, this will be, we'll go to African politics as well, where we look at the regional elections that have been held. Congo is actually our neighbor, and hence what happened there can't be ignored. We had some elections in Zimbabwe, something that, of course, you are keen about it because you are also a political scientist and also a lecturer. Let's look at the issue to deal with, of course, away from the democracy. Just briefly about the Cholera outbreak and also in the manner, from the governance perspective, how it is being handled. Just under a minute, then we'll proceed.
Okay, thank you. Number one, it's very unfortunate that we are losing a lot of lives. Our citizens dying in numbers due to the cholera outbreak. The state so far has not done what they were supposed to do.
What were they
the
supposed to do?
response was supposed to be on time. They delayed.
Right.
The cholera outbreak is a waterborne disease. So you don't respond when rains start. You prepare before the rains start. This government and this president didn't do that. So we need to be very clear on that. They need to be blamed and they need to acknowledge and accept and apologize to the Zambian people. Number two is that the UPND government abandoned a proper and a coordinated approach to addressing such national public health matters. We had the Keep Zambia Clean campaign. They abandoned it. It was very unfortunate because that would have been a bedrock on which this outbreak of the cholera would have been prevented or mitigated. For whatever reasons, they never wanted to do anything to do with the PF or ECL. So the Keep Zambia Lusaka, Keep Zambia and Clean campaign, Keep Lusaka Clean campaign should be relaunched by President HH because it has worked in the past. We couldn't have had these lives being lost. The last point is that we need to call upon all Zambians to not to politic when it involves the loss of human lives. Cholera is killing our citizens. Cholera might kill you or me tomorrow. We need to work together as citizens. We need to work together as Zambians, regardless of political affiliation and political party standing. This government needs help. This government needs support in terms of the fight against cholera. There we need to work as Zambians. You see, it is just nonsensical to see people talking about PF, UPND, Socialist Party, when people are dying. It never works like that. It's lack of patriotism. It's lack of having a human heart. It's lack of having a Christian heart. We are a Christian nation. Where is our humanity? Where is our Christianity? If we begin to politic the loss of lives. It's unfortunate, and my appeal is let's work together as a people and as a country to fight this cholera. We have done it before and we can do it, but President HH must take lead to bring on board different stakeholders, different players, regardless of their political standing, to work with him and to support him. In fact, he can even extend consultation, reach out to the PF, reach out to the Socialist Party, reach out to FDD, reach out to different stakeholders who have different solutions. It's a national issue, and national issues must bring the country to stand as one. When Israel was attacked by Hamas, they abandoned their political affiliations and formed what they call a war cabinet. A war cabinet is a cabinet of different politicians in Israel from different political parties to specifically respond to the Hamas attack. That's what we need in Zambia. We need a cholera, some form of national committee, different stakeholders that will work with this president and this government to fight and eradicate cholera. We can do it, and we just need to stand as one, regardless of political affiliation.
You have authored a number of articles from the time you were released from prison, Dr. Zimba, and some of the articles really have not been received well by some concerned citizens. And one of it was the article that you authored around the presidential advisor, internal advisors, and vis-a-vis also some extension of presidential advisors, And people are saying Dr. Zimba maybe is being too hypocritical because when he was in government as well, ECL and you might also have, practiced the same rule or the same policy which President Akandeshema is exercising today. What was the gist of your story?
Okay, so thank you. It's good that you brought the issue of articles. So I was arrested on Tuesday and they released on a Friday. So those 2 days are very important for me.
Right.
Those are the only 2 days I publish political articles and heavy political articles for that matter, because it's a way I marked it that way when I was in prison.
That's Friday
and the Tuesday.
and the Tuesdays.
Yes.
Right.
So for Friday, when they released it, I do it on a Thursday night.
Right.
For Tuesday, I do it also maybe on a Monday night. So that pattern will remain that way. It will remain that way for those 2 days. Until God speaks to me that now change. So for now, I'm in that gear and I like it that way. So let's get back to the question. Political advisors versus external consultants at State House. That's the issue. Look, a political advisor, just like a press advisor, an economic advisor, do not have budgets at State House. I want it to be very clear here, especially under the PF and under ECL. We are civil servants. When you are appointed as an advisor or a special assistant to the president, you are given a letter by cabinet. You are appointed by cabinet, so you are a civil servant. You get a salary. You are entitled to a house. You are entitled to a car. You are entitled maybe to the security and the drivers, and so you are entitled to a secretary. You are a civil servant. A special assistant to the president, in terms of ranking, by the way, is between a secretary of cabinet and a PS. Is above a PS and is below a secretary of cabinet. In terms of ranking, a special assistant is at the rank of deputy secretary of cabinet. So, the deputy secretary of the cabinet, what he or she is entitled to, that's what all special assistants at State House to the president are entitled to. I want it very clear. Right. So you are just a notch or a position below secretary of cabinet, but the PS is below. So you are a civil servant. You don't have a special budget. A budget for what? That's the question. You are under the president. So you are a functionary of the president. You are the arm of the president. That's why you are a special assistant to the president. So for people to begin to insinuate that, no, maybe during Zimba's time at State House, even with ECL, he also had a budget for consultants. No. Because that's, any money coming to that office must come from the National Treasury anyway, and must be accounted for and audited. So you are not funded. It's not a funded office like a ministry. All the sector ministries, they are funded. You can even check in the national budget. There is no office of the special assistant of the president that is funded, as far as I'm concerned, unless things have changed now under the UPND. You operate as a functionary of the president. If the president says, okay, my political advisor, Levin Goma, I want you to go to Rwanda for ABCD. It is the president's office. They'll give you a plane. They'll give you everything. You don't carry money. You just go. You find the plane there. Then you move. You do your business. You come back. Then you report to the president. No, so that is doesn't arise, in short, to answer the question that under PF we had managers who are even engaging to consult people. No. Coming to the issue I raised, that the Tony Blair Foundation and these are like that under PF. You see, that's the issue. That's the article, in fact. Tony Blair is the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. A Prime Minister is an equivalent of a president in the Zambian context, isn't it? You see, you can't have a sovereign state engaging a former president of another country to be an advisor and working at the State House. In fact, a prime minister or a former president of a former colonial master, you see, it doesn't work that way. Moreover, we are not even told the level of, from the level of their contract and what they have brought out, this is high level engagement with a president directly. Not being a consultant under a ministry. But direct, when he comes to Zambia, Tony Blair, he meets President HH. They talk one-on-one. Just like Levin Goma or Christopher Mundia would meet HH one-on-one. A former president, a former prime minister of a former colonial master of a European state, another state. It doesn't work. That's betrayal of sovereignty. Zambia is an independent state. You can engage such people as proxies under some council, meaning at foreign affairs. They will report to a PS or a minister. You can engage them outside, maybe under some institution, some government agency, not under direct the office of the president and reporting to the president. I can assure you, it doesn't matter how they want to debate it. That is an assault. That is a betrayal to our independence. That is a betrayal and an assault to our sovereignty. It doesn't matter, even if Tony Blair said, don't pay me anything, don't just allow him.
Right.
Because you are a sovereign state. There are certain things that are supposed to be privy to us as Zambia and to us as a sovereign state. Another leader, politician of another state should not be given that too much space and latitude. And later on, you even pay him a lot of money. That's imperialism. Because he's coming to extract money. By the way, so what special skills is Tony Blair bringing to Zambia and the Tony Blair Foundation, which Zambian professors at UNZA, at CBU, or anywhere cannot offer to President HH? Or that foundation from South Africa for, is it Greg Mills? Those are just imperialists. I can assure you, they are coming in, that's why they are being paid a lot of money. We have a lot of educated Zambians, doctors and professors. By the way, from what I heard, I don't know if it is true, there's a Professor Momba at UNZA. He taught me, he's a professor in political science. He taught me in 2004. I came to learn later that they are related to President HH. Where can't he consult his uncle, Professor Momba? Yet he goes to Tony Blair in UK and that gentleman in South Africa, who are foreigners. He meets them for hours, advising them on what? Which Levin Goma can't do. Because what's the job of Levin Goma as his political advisor? What is the job of Christopher Mundia? What is the job of these other advisors around him as
possibly we can't divide, we can't develop in isolation. We need...
No, my brother, that's a failure. It's a political failure. President HH promised Zambians that he's one of the best politicians to govern this country, has the best skills. The fact that he's relying on those foreigners and in this case whites, is an indication that he has failed. It is an indication that he has got no trust and confidence in his own advisors like Levin Goma and Christopher Mundia and these others around him. President Lunga, in fact, for me, President Lunga had appointed such people around State House and I was there, I would have resigned. So what's my job as an expert? Because I was engaged as a political advisor, as an expert, as a political scientist. Now, why should we create conduits outside me and around me to be advising me, yet I'm also called an his advisor? So Levin Goma has become a Chola boy. Christopher Mundia has become a Chola boy around the president. So the key advisors is those Tony Blair Foundation and those Breath Foundation from South Africa. The worst thing, my brother, is that we are a sovereign state. If they want to contract them, let them contract them through a ministry, through some government agency, not under State House, not direct under the president. They can't be reporting the president direct, calling him, texting him on WhatsApp. When they come here, they meet him.
Let me get your quick comment, Dr. Zimba, in regards to the emerging regional groupings. I'll call them regional groupings, such as, for example, the formation of the Umozi Kumawa. Rather, are you part of it, by the way?
No.
Thank you so much. Let me get your comment around the Umozi Kumawa, which has been formed.
But I know it.
You know it,
because
right?
I've been following.
Yes. What is going on in our country, and what does it mean to have these groupings? You've got Chundu Chaitwa, you have the Cholera Foundation, and just a few days ago we also watched a video of some chiefs coming from the northwestern province who are discussing about the Baroserand story. What's going on?
So the issue is this. I'll speak from my professional point of view.
Yeah.
So, a political system can determine whether a country remains united or becomes divided. A political system. So, when you're designing political systems for states, you need to look at the configuration of this country in terms of its vastness, geographical size, in terms of its citizen composition from the point of race and ethnicity as well as the religion. That's what determines the compatible political system that you can apply for that country. So Zambia has been in existence for ages. We are just inheriting these systems. So we have what we call a unitary state. That's what we have been running on from independence to date. A unitary state demands that you have one central government in a capital city that runs the affairs of the entire territory. It doesn't matter how vast it is. It doesn't matter the diversity of ethnicity, races, or religions in that country. One government and one leader runs everything, runs the show. So Zambia is a unitary state, and it is clear in black and white in our national supreme law, and it has been so. The reason why I'm raising this issue is because of the groupings you're mentioning. When you begin to see such groupings emerging, it simply means that you need to revisit the political system you have and assess as to whether it is still sustainable and useful, or you need to revise and change. The opposite of a unitary system is what we call a federal system. So a federal system is a system of a government where you have got one national government in a capital city presiding over semi-autonomous governments in the regions. So what we call provinces become states that are under a federal government or a national government. The reason why federal systems are encouraged is because in certain countries there's too much ethnic, racial, and religious diversity. So the people are not one. So you can't run them from the capital city as one. They have different political histories. They have different political heritages. They have maybe different tribes and regions and races. Just like the US. The US, you can't run it from as a unitary state. It won't work, it will break. So it runs as a federal system. That's why they have got different states. Joe Biden is the president of the United States. But within that framework, there are other governors running different states, like Washington is a state on its own. California is a state on its own. It has its own governor, its own parliament, and so on. Where we are going from these groupings, I can assure you, we need to be talking about that debate. Right. The unitary system is becoming archaic. The unitary system is becoming old in terms of holding us together. Because what brought us together before independence was to fight for liberation. Not that Zambians were one. Zambians came from different groupings to fight the colonialists. We became one. So we created a unitary system based on that background.
Right.
But while we are going, we need to realize that some Zambians have some Congolese origin. Some Zambians have South African origin. Some Zambians never got. So we are too different in terms of national heritage. So what is a nation? A nation is a homogeneous group of people. Now I want to define these things so that you understand.
Yeah.
So from a political science point of view, we say one Zambia, one nation. That's a slogan Kaunda gave us. That slogan is just good for civics. And it's also just good for political mobilization of people. But it is not factually correct. A nation is a homogeneous group of people. I'm defining a nation. Since we say one Zambia, one nation, I want to define a nation. A classical definition of a nation. Not a civic definition, but a classical one, the original. A nation is a homogeneous group of people, bigger than a community, with a common language and common political heritage. That's a nation. A homogeneous group of people, number one, with a common heritage, meaning common history, common language, common culture, and are willing to stay together. 5 features. This definition was defined by Lenin in 1819 or so in France. It has remained the classical definition of a nation. So the people who are in a nation must be homogeneous in nature, meaning they're supposed to be one. They're supposed to have a common language. From east, west, north, south, you should speak one language. You should have a common heritage, meaning your history, where you come from, must be one. Then you must also be willing to remain together as one people. That's what is called a nation. So a nation, a classical nation, is something like Saudi Arabia. They have Arabic as a language. They are generally like Muslims. They are one people. England is a nation. They speak English as a language. All of them. France is a nation because they speak French. They are one people. Go to Sweden, they speak Swedish. They are one people. Go to Norway, they speak their one language. And so these, I'm just giving you as examples.
Yeah.
Italy and so on. Now, when you come to Zambia, we say one Zambia, one nation. How many languages?
73.
How many tribes? So Zambia. So classical nations like those I was citing, if you use a unitary system, one president running everything works. Countries like Zambia, which are heterogeneous, not homogeneous, heterogeneous in terms of ethnicity, meaning you have got many nations. In Zambia, you have got many nations, many groups of people with a common heritage and common language. There are many. So in such countries, you need a federal system.
Right.
So I wanted to come back to the issue of your group that you see, I'm a political scientist, so I can't answer it in a street language approach. I've used this technical approach to explain that these groupings, as long as we remain heterogeneous, they will remain stubborn with us in our face. Right. Any government of the day must be able to know how to engage them and manage them. You can't crush them, you can't stop them, you can't kill them. In the United States, there are groups such as Black Lives Matter. They are for blacks. You can't stop them. It's an interest group for black people, articulating the interests and the rights of the blacks. So any government can say, no, that's racism, stop them because they're promoting racism. No. Engage them. It's an interest group advancing their interests, affecting them as a group. They are Jewish Americans. They also have their own groupings in America. You can't crush them. Because that's who they are.
So equally, these groupings must be engaged.
That's supposed to be engaged. In a democracy,
right.
Interest groups are a key ingredient of a multi-party system. Interest groups, groups for farmers, groups for maybe for miners, groups for students, can be groups for people of Chilanga Association, Township. You can't banish them. If they want to come a group that to promote development around Chilanga, why hate them?
Quickly, Doc,
these are groups that are supposed to be embraced, engaged, and just managed.
Quickly, Doc, I want just you to have your comment around the regional elections that we've had. Of course, we had one in DRC Congo, we had one in Zimbabwe, and many other countries. What have you picked from there as a political scientist? Because I know that you don't just deal with local affairs, but of course you deal with a number of issues as a lecturer, political scientist, and an author.
So what has happened in the recent past in the region, I'll even include Kenya, is commendable. You can't talk about democracy or multipartyism without periodical elections. They are a hallmark of a democracy, periodical elections. And these elections are supposed to be free, fair, and credible. Consistently, from what I've noticed, especially coming out of Zimbabwe and DRC Congo, these elections have been disputed, broadly disputed, by local players as well as external players. There's been something that has been consistent between Congo and also Zimbabwe. The SADC chair, who is our current president, President HH, was able to appoint an observer mission led by a Zambian. On the side of Zimbabwe, it was led by a pastor, Dr. Neva Smumba, and a politician, who is also former vice president of Zambia. On the side of Congo, it was led by Mr. Enoch Kabindele, also former vice president of Zambia. You see, there is a difference in the conduct of two. In the elections of Zimbabwe, Dr. Neva Smumba created anarchy and chaos. He was issuing statements on the war in Zimbabwe. In fact, I even don't know how he escaped and how he survived. Because the people of Zimbabwe, the ruling party in particular, they were raging against him. There was some form of political misconduct by the person leading a SADC delegation of the observer mission in the name of Dr. Zumani. There was some exchange of bitter messages and statements. I was in prison, but I was following, by the way. It was embarrassing. Today, Mr. Enoch Kavindele was giving us a report to President HH as SADC chair. He never issued statements in the Congo when he was in the Congo. He came to give a report to the president who sent him and who is also the chair of the SADC Troika. That's the way it's supposed to be. That is the face and the stature of a statesman. So Mr. Enoch Kavindele has presented himself as a statesman. He has raised the bar of diplomacy. He has raised the bar of election observation. Dr. Zimba, to the contrary, undermined and embarrassed President HH and Zambia, as well as SADC. So it's a lesson we need to learn.
Right.
Number two is that you discover that when the President Mnangagwa was re-elected, the SADC chair, as well as Zambian president, never issued a statement to congratulate him. He was mute for hours, for days, and even weeks. In fact, I even don't know if he has congratulated him anyway, because he felt the elections were not free and fair, allowed by Dr. Zimba. Anyway, on the other hand, on the Congo, our president, who is also the SADC chair, was among the first ones to congratulate very fast. In fact, before even he received the report, he congratulated the President Felix Tshisekedi last week on his Facebook page. I checked. That was very strange. That was very worrying for a SADC chair to congratulate somebody whose elections have been disputed before a court. Both local players like the Catholic Church, the Protestant Church election observation teams were very clear that elections in Congo are not free and fair. A lot of people died. More than 20% of the polling stations never opened and people never voted. More than 40% of the polling stations extended elections to another day or a day or more. Yet the elections are supposed to be for 1 day, meaning they conducted elections outside the law. Those were the issues before the court. Those were the issues the local observation teams were raising against, including the opposition political party leaders. Yet the SADC chair, within a few hours after Felix Tshisekedi was re-elected, he posted on his Facebook page to congratulate him. And even today, he was throwing accolades as if elections in the Congo are free and fair. It's very unfortunate.
What conclusion have you made with the two comparison, the manner Dr. Mumba presided over the elections in in Zimbabwe, and also Dr. Kavindele, how he presided over the elections in DRC Congo, vis-a-vis how President Hakainde Hichilema, who is a chair over the SADC region. What have you concluded? As I pick maybe 2-3
Yes,
causes.
there have been some form of bias. President HH has shown some bias against President Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe, and they have shown bias in favor of President Tshisekedi of DRC Congo. So it's not a good posture for him as the chair of the SADC region. In fact, the chair of the Troika, a body in charge of security and politics at SADC level. It's not a good posture. It creates some form of political tension between and among his peers in the region. So how is the President Mnangagwa feeling in Zimbabwe today? Given that his neighbor, who is President HH, never congratulated him. In fact, he didn't even go for his inauguration. He didn't even send the vice president, for God's sake. He sent the Minister of Foreign Affairs to insult and undermine whatever happened in Zimbabwe of his own brother, President Mnangagwa. Today, he is at the top of the anthill celebrating and urinating for President Tshisekedi in Zimbabwe. The same person. It's a bad contradiction. It's a bad diplomatic gesture. It undermines good neighborliness. It undermines Zambia's diplomatic role in the sub-regions. It's supposed to have been consistent. It was supposed to have been neutral. It's supposed to have been balanced and ensure that he's posturing himself both as a good peer president in the region between the two, but above all, as a chair of the SADC Troika, a body in charge of elections and security for SADC.
Let me see if I can pick just two calls as we go within 5 minutes. I had some challenges in terms of our line on the screen, but let's hear what our callers have to say. Caller, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, IP.
Good evening. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from. You've got a minute. Come again?
Comrade Mkosa.
Okay. Please go ahead. You've got a minute, Mkosa.
Dr. Zumani Zimba, good evening.
Good evening, thank you.
Yeah, I'm very worried, comrade, the way you are coming out. You have talked about people being compensated because they are UPND, they are coming from certain regions. But you are not telling us that those people are compensated because they sold the state. How do you expect the family of Congo to be compensated minus them suing the state? And others that you are saying they have not been compensated. I think we need to be fair the way we are debating these issues. When you are talking about the PF being the Mao Zimba function being sponsored by UPND, and again you are misleading the nation. Who sponsored Edgar Lungu in 2014? Because whatever Mao Zimba did at Murungushi, it is almost similar, if not the Edgar Lungu conversion in Murungushi in Kabwe in 2014.
Right.
Was not worse than what happened.
Right. You may conclude, Comrade Mkosa.
As I conclude, I want Comrade Zimba to tell me who stood with Edgar Lungu in Kabwe in 2014.
Right.
And how many votes did Lungu have to court when he became the PF presidential candidate?
Thank you so much.
This is what I wanted.
Right, thank you so much. We are cruising. I will just pick two calls. From there, we call it a night. Time is beyond our programming schedule. My guest on the program is Dr. Chris Zumani Zimba, former President Edgar Lungu's political advisor. Caller, good evening and welcome to the program. Caller, good evening. All right, please call us back. The number is right on your screen. Within a minute, give your submission. It could be a question or a clarification. We are behind schedule. Caller, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, IP. Good evening, Dr. Zumani Zimba.
Good evening, thank you.
Yeah, this is PC calling you from Kitwe.
Please go ahead, PC.
Yes, like the previous caller said, it's really worrying the way, that man there, who happened to be the advisor to the president, the way it's coming out. Yeah, because if that's the person who was advising the president, and that's the reason why we are seeing a lot of catastrophes everywhere. Because there is no way that person can pretend not to know what was happening, during that time when radio stations were being closed, when the people were going through the roofs and all that, and he's saying everything was lost. Then again he mentioned something to do with the consultants at his state house and all that. When that person is very much aware that during that time they even hired Lazat to come and just help. There's some people, the educated doctors, like the one seated there. So he's telling us to say, most people like him, they would not help the president, to maybe, structure the deed, apart from, hiring Al-Assad from France.
All right. You may conclude, please.
They will come out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Let me pick up my last caller. Then Doc is going to respond within 3 minutes, and then we close the program. Let's hear what your question or your comment would be as my last caller this evening. Caller, good evening and welcome to the program. Caller, good evening and welcome to the program. All right, ensure you reduce the volume on your TV set before you call me. I've got just a minute to accommodate one caller. From there, we have to call it a night. My guest on the program is Dr. Chris Zumani Zimba, who is a political scientist, an author, and a former political advisor. Caller, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, thank you. This is Zambia calling from Eastern Province.
Please go ahead, you've got a minute.
Yes, my contribution is that I think our brother Zumani, I think our brother Zumani Zimba, you are articulating very well, but I think with biasness.
Right.
When you are talking about the UPND funding Mao Zimba, you are also not talking about the illegality that is also happening within the party. Are you aware that your constitution states that the constitution for the patriotic party states that if somebody has resigned or has been removed, he has to come and he has to come back. They need to apply, and 3 years has to be given, something like that. Edgar Lungu, our former president, our beloved president, resigned, and he came back without even applying. He wants to be a president, and you're calling him a president. And then he says somebody is sponsoring that. I think that is also biasness at this level. And the second thing is for the compensation. I agree with you. People with own knowledge, they should not be paid.
Right.
But for Congo, for instance, that you are talking about, the case is still in court of law. Why are you saying that they need to be compensated? Have they applied? Have they been acquitted or have they been given a knowledge?
Right. Please, you may conclude.
Yes, in conclusion.
Yes, please.
They were supposed to go to court and they applied.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Allow me just read one or two messages from there. We call it tonight. This one is saying, good Dr. Zimba, we need political scientists like you in Zambia. There's no name there. Please ensure that you give us the name before you text the messages. This one is saying, I think I like Dr. Zimba and his submission, very genuine and very brutal. We need such people to bring the UPND government out of power come 2026 because they have really hammered us. All right. Okay. So he's saying PF cadres used to beat people up and also the police officers. Okay. Thank you so much. The point is taken. PF cadres used to beat the police and okay. So he's saying good evening, Dr. Zimba. You are wrong. The issue of Mao Sampa is not a UPND thing. Please find another reason. All right. Thank you so much. Allow me to end here. I think our schedule is almost lapsing. Doc, you may just react, and then from there we'll close the program.
Okay, thank you, thank you. My reactions in terms of the issues raised are very moderate, given that we did discuss these things in context. Suing being the basis of compensation, and the reason why Jackson Kungo's family have not been compensated, I think has been raised by Mr. Mkosa.
Yeah. They
have not sued and they can't be compensated from what he has said. I don't know if the family of Gaddafi Banda sued the state. Gaddafi Banda is somebody the president talks about many times. And the compensation discussions around his family are ongoing. Maybe they have been compensated. They have never taken the state to court, from what I know. In fact, his father was on record to say, we have not been compensated. So if Jackson Kungo's family have not sued and they are not compensated, why should Gaddafi Banda's family, who was UPND, be compensated, yet they have also not sued? It comes back to the issue of being partisan in the way the compensation is being framed. So I pray and hope that Jackson Kungo's family will receive the justice Gaddafi Banda's family has received.
Right.
With or without compensation, because these are known cases. And the other issue was the issue of Lazard being the PF government also hired Lazard as a consultant. That's the reason.
In the debt restructuring, you remember?
Yes. They were not hired by State House.
Who hired Lazard?
Lazard was not hired by State House. Lazard never worked at State House. Lazard never reported President Lungu. So you see, comparisons must be compatible. You don't compare an emperor with an elephant. The issue of Tony Blair Foundation and the Brainthirst Foundation of South Africa around HH at State House is an elephant in the room. Everybody sees it around HH, they report to HH. Lazard was contracted by the Ministry of Finance, a government department, a government agency, a ministry, for God's sake. By the way, ministries engage different consultants. It's normal. Internal and external consultants, they're engaged by ministries. So Lazard was just one of them. Never by State House. They never reported to the president. I was at State House. I never even met anybody from Lazard. Go to State House, they're going to find these guys from the Tony Blair Foundation around State House. Our State House, the highest office of the land, where we pride our freedom and our independence and our sovereignty. These Muzungus are rare everywhere. In fact, it's for the first time from what I've learned that now Europeans are working at State House. People who had colonized us, who enslaved us. It's quite shameful politically. So you see, let's not compare emperors and the elephants. Yeah, no, yeah. So
we have to end.
Yeah. The last one is Mao Zimba being funded by UPND. I will repeat this. They should just go and interview with Mr. Cornelius Mwendo. Is the main evidence and confirmation of UPND's funding of Mao Zimba. We don't need even to debate this issue. Right. But above all, the way the whole convention was conducted. In fact, Mao Zimba is being guarded by state police. Are you aware?
I'm not aware.
He's the only.
We have to go, Doc. I'm not aware. You have to come back for another episode, I believe.
Maybe. No, I'm thankful for the time and the opportunity. Thank you so much, and I look forward to another one, maybe in future.
Thank you so much, Doc. We're happy to host you this evening on KBN TV.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Always my pleasure to be on this platform. And
thank you so much.
With you.
Right, we end the program this evening. Of course, we've exceeded by 5 minutes. Otherwise, thank you so much for having sent in all those messages that, of course, we couldn't manage to read all of them. Otherwise, join me again next week on State of the Nation. May God bless Zambia. May God bless Mother.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm running a campaign of hitting 10,000 subscribers within 10 solid days, and I am on number day 2 as of today. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please, I ask and request that you subscribe to my channel to make that 10,000 campaign possible, because I just can't do this without you. Thank you for showing up on my video, and make sure you subscribe to my channel, and make sure you comment on my video, make sure you share my video, and make sure you like my video, because I'm gonna see you in the next video.